Well, Luigi Mangione now has been charged with murder with the state and the federal government. So tonight, James and I are going to talk about what happens next. What is Luigi going to face next? This is Charlie Crimebuster along with James Buckland, and we're going to talk about that and a lot more on this edition of Crime Talk.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals interviewed or participating and do not represent those of Charlie Crimebuster nor Peacemaker Network. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
James, this is the last one this year, buddy.
This is the big hurrah for the year, yeah.
Yeah. We won't be doing this for another year now.
That's right. Wow.
Which is next week. Right? Yeah.
Actually, it's actually what, 2 days from today?
Yeah, there you go. But it's really great. We appreciate all the folks that have joined up with us this past year, and those who have become a part of the Charlie Crime Train. We thank you for being a part of it, and we hope that you'll be with us many, many more years in advance as we continue to investigate these crimes.
That's right. We really look forward to everyone joining us, not just here, but also at peacemakernetwork.com and charliecrimebuster.com as well.
Right, at peacemakernetwork.com, they can actually become a part of the team by becoming a badge supporter.
That's right.
For as little as $3 a month, you can be a part of the team here and help those brave men and women who run toward danger instead of away from danger.
Mm-hmm.
And they can also see how we support the first responders that are always there when we need them.
That's right.
And also the law enforcement and, of course, those brave men and women of our military. So.
Yeah, and this is especially this time of year when we've lost those two our foreign entities that have our enemies that have come against us. You know, this is a rough time of the year to be missing out those we've lost.
Oh yeah, and think about it. We get to spend Christmas, New Year's with our families, but a lot of these folks don't have that opportunity. You know, they're out there protecting us.
That's right.
I think they deserve our attention. They deserve our support. So I hope a lot of folks will jump right over there to peacemakernetwork.com and find out all about that.
Right.
Tell us about, tell the folks where they can find us elsewhere other than peacemakernetwork.com.
Well, as you mentioned, Charlie, we are available at charliecrimebuster.com. Now, at charliecrimebuster.com, they can listen to some of our previous podcasts that we've had here on Charlie Crimebuster, not just the Crime Talk, but also the podcast. And just for those that are just joining us that may not know, we have 2 broadcasts per week. You drop a podcast that talks about the actual either crime story or the current events, and then you and I discuss it on Crime Talk.
Right.
At just a couple of days later, to kind of recap what was not only presented on the podcast, but also new information that may have come forth. So we just want to encourage everybody to, twice they can listen to the podcast when it's released on Monday, and then typically every Wednesday. Of course, we're doing this differently this week because of the holidays, but every Wednesday we drop our Crime Talk show, and they can listen to that at YouTube, where our YouTube channel, and it's youtube.com/@CharlieCrimebuster. So you can visit us there. And also, too, many of our podcasts and our Crime Talks are listed there as well. So they can join us there. And if they subscribe, they will be notified every time we drop a show.
There you go. And also, if you're just joining us, you probably want to get caught up because this is number 4.
Right. This is episode number 4.
Yeah. Number 4. So there was 3 more previous episodes that you probably want to be a part of. In fact, I kind of enjoy the fact that a lot of our investigations are in real time. In other words,
right.
when we first dropped the first episode, we did not know who had done this deed. We did not know.
We didn't know.
Luigi wasn't arrested by that time, and there was a national manhunt, but we didn't know who we were looking for. We had we had hits,
Yep.
and so I like it that a lot of the folks that are a part of the Charlie Crime Train can be with us in real time as we investigate these.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about not only our military but and our first responders that have been lost in either the line of work or line of fire, but also this Christmas season, Brian Thompson's family was without him as well.
Right? Yep.
So we need to keep that in mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, it's interesting you should point this out because we would like to hear from our viewers and our listeners. People that actually come to us and they, I see comments like they like the show, but we would like a little more feedback from you. Even though you like the show, it's okay to like the show, but kind of give us some feedback. Is it too long? Are we too winded? Do we cover the topic well enough? These are things we want to hear
Sure.
from you so that we
Yeah.
can, it better helps us to prepare the program and do things a little bit differently or better than it is right now. If we need areas of improvement, and if we're doing fine, we'd like to hear that too. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
reach out with a shout out at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Or they can call or text us. You can leave a message, of course, when you call us. We don't pick up the phone on this. We just allow you to leave a message. And it's at 407-917-2211, 407-917-2211. And if you want to text us on that as well, we can take those. And again, this is an open forum. If you disagree with us,
Hmm.
if you have comments or suggestions or even opinions, or you lob an objection, we want to hear from you. So please use those resources, either charliecrimebuster@gmail.com or 407-917-2211.
Yes, sir. And James, I'd like to hear the folks. You and I have talked about this,
Mm-hmm.
maybe extending our time
Yes,
for this part, our crime talk, and maybe even going live,
going
you
live.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would like to hear if the people would like that. If they'd like to maybe say, hey, you guys are just getting into it, and in 30 minutes you're out of here, and maybe we'd like to stay around a little longer.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if there's that interest out there, I think we would certainly be open to that.
And this next year, we're going to attempt to get some special guests. We had one this last
Hmm.
year,
Yep.
and we intend on getting two of our sheriffs that are here in Central Florida. We'd like to be able to get them on board as well to join us
Hmm.
on our podcast. So, there's a little more in store, so we're working on it.
Yeah, we're excited about this year. It's 2025, the year to thrive in 25, right?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
That's great. Yes.
we'll thrive in 25.
Well, thrive in 25. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, James, let's get into the heart of everything today. The title, of course, is What is Next for Luigi? What is next? What's coming down the pike?
Well, tell us about the New York attorney that Luigi has hired.
Well, he has hired a really high-powered attorney, which I think this is so crazy because, he is saying in his manifesto, he is saying, that he's against corporate greed and he's against capitalism and all this sort of thing.
Hmm.
But yet, the fact that capitalism with his family has entitled him to have the means to get a very high-powered attorney, right?
Exactly.
And this is Karen Friedman Agnifilo, and boy, she is a top-notch attorney, no doubt about it. She spent, listen to this, James, for over 20 years, for just about 20 years, 2 decades. She was actually the chief assistant district attorney there in New York City.
Really?
So, I mean, that means she was like the second in charge.
Wow.
So she certainly knows the district attorney's office. While she was there, she was in charge of. Now, when you first look, if you were to go online and go to the Agnifilo attorney
Hmm.
firm,
Hmm.
and you would see that there's only 4 or 5 attorneys there. So you say, well, this is kind of a small office.
Right.
However, keep in mind that when she was with the district attorney's office, she actually was in charge of over 500 attorneys. So she's second in
She's,
charge.
she's been around the block.
Oh yeah, she established some really special programs for them. She established the human trafficking unit, which is a
Hmm.
really important unit today. The
Right.
hate crimes unit, the cyber
Right.
crimes unit, identity
Right.
theft.
Right.
Um, and you talk about being involved in the prosecution side. She was actually instrumental in prosecuting Weinstein. That's a big, high-profile case.
Wow.
Yeah, and then on top of that, she actually worked in also brought what they called the Manhattan Mental Health Court. So she
Uh-huh.
was responsible for that. But then she left. She left, interesting enough, when the district attorney that she worked for, when he decided not to run again for another reelection, she then left and actually joined her husband's law firm as in counsel. Now,
Mm,
as in counsel, to me, that kind of means that she could probably pretty well get together with them and decide what cases she wanted to be a part of and what cases she did not want to be a part of.
right.
But this firm, even though when you look at the website, only 4 or 5 pictures do you see there of attorneys, they have been involved in quite a few big, high profile cases. Even right now, her husband, Mark, is actually Diddy's attorney. So,
Oh, P. Diddy, right?
yeah, yeah. So
Wow.
this is really a high profile attorney that he has.
Wow. Okay. So what stands out to you about her experience, particularly?
Well, certainly, first comes to my mind the knowledge about the system. She certainly
Uh-huh.
knows how the system works.
Uh-huh.
And someone else I had read had talked about knowing her and said that she knew every judge, every attorney, every courter. She knows that system inside and out, which would be an advantage for any client that she would have. And on top of that, I think the thing that really stood out to me, though, was that last part that I shared with you, that she had set up Manhattan's mental health court. So
Mm,
if she is going to move into that area of the mental
hmm.
mental part of it, she certainly has the goods to do that. So again, very extremely successful and very knowledgeable. And I just don't know that he could have picked anybody better to come to his side to defend him with the charges.
Well, in the podcast, you said that she would come out swinging. What did you mean by come out swinging?
Well, I like this because I was hearing a couple of people talking about it. And I said, well, they thought that she, because she was a district attorney and as a second person in the district attorney, she did not often come out before, and have press conferences and this sort of thing. So she wasn't really seen that way. But in this situation, she came out swinging. This is a high profile case. And she immediately, after she got on board, she began to criticize the way that they handled Luigi's extradition and arraignment.
Mm,
She mentioned the fact that she thought it was heavily politicized
hmm.
and that it was undermining her client's right to a fair trial. And get this, and this is a term that I thought was real catchy. So I don't know whether she came up with this or whether she has a PR firm helping her. I don't know. But she basically stated that it was the biggest stage perp walk she had ever seen in her career.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? And it
Yeah.
was, and it was. I mean, you should,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
saw it and we saw it,
Yep.
we saw it on the news that all these police officers surrounding him.
Hmm.
The mayor was there, the district attorney was there. Everybody was there. She even accused. I mean, talk about coming out swinging. She accused the New York city officials of using this case for political purposes, including Mayor Eric Adams. So I mean, she didn't mind standing up to these folks. So
Wow. She.
I think she's going to be a very forceful, advocate for her client.
Wow. Wow. Let's change gears for just a moment. What kind of crazy cook story did you have today?
Well, I call this one the Santa fugitive. It was Christmas week, right?
Uh-huh.
So we found a crazy crook to kind of fit into Christmas week. Thank God this wasn't a Florida man,
Right.
but he was a guy. They're actually the police had raided this house. They had warrants for these two guys' arrest, and so the guy's going to run from the police. And there's all kinds of stories of crazy crooks running from the police. We mentioned all kinds of ways. We talked about one who even got on a riding lawnmower to try to leave
Right. Exactly.
and all this. So a lot of crazy things. But these guys decided to run upwards instead of outwards, and so they jumped on the roof. So that didn't deter the police. The police were heading right up there after him. But this guy he decided he was going to be smart and hide in a chimney just like Santa when Santa goes down the chimney. Only problem was, James, he got stuck in the chimney. And so then the very police that he was trying to invade was the very police that had to help him get out of the chimney that he was stuck in. So I call him Santa's fugitive. Because he decided he was going to go down the chimney just like Santa Claus.
Santa Claus has special powers where he gets a little smaller to be able to go in those
so
places.
message to crooks out there: if you're trying to lead the popo, you probably ought not jump down a chimney because that might not be the wisest thing to do.
That's good advice. Yeah, that's good.
So
advice.
I certainly think what he did qualified him as one of Charlie Cromwell's crazy crooks of the week, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back to our case. This is such a strong prosecution case. Is there any chance that this attorney can do anything for Luigi, the client?
Well, it is a very strong case, James. They now have fingerprints that they found on that water bottle that that the alleged perp took there before he did the shooting. They found his fingerprints on a wrapper. They found his backpack in the park there.
Burner phone.
Yeah, the burner phone with his
Mm-hmm.
fingerprints on the burner phone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They found a written confession. The
Right.
manifesto where he wrote all that. So this is a pretty doggone strong case. I mean, even on top of that, I believe, and I think you would probably agree with me that more than likely they're going to eventually be able to tie DNA with it as well, to put his DNA there with all
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that they're getting. So
Oh,
we don't know
absolutely.
that yet. That hasn't been proven. So
No.
I guess I'm telling you, this is an extreme strong case. But there are some ways that she might, if she's successful, certainly some ways that she can try to keep her client from either spending the rest of his life in jail or the death penalty. There are three ways I think that could happen, and the easy way for our people to remember it out there is just three words: deal, uh, nullification, and crazy.
Yeah,
So
but
you
how
can
would?
remember those three words, and
Yeah.
that would be about the deal. She could get a deal, jury nullification, or crazy.
Yeah, but how would there be any chance of getting a deal in such a strong case?
Well, you're right. It's a strong case, and I mean, if you're the DA, if you're the district attorney at this point, you're saying, "Hey, I got a slam dunk case, right? So
Yeah.
why in the world would I want to make a deal? I mean, I could take this thing all the way,
Yep.
go to a jury. I think I can make it happen. Why would I make a deal? Well, there is something, and this actually goes back to some of the charges. If you remember in one of their podcasts at the very beginning, as I said, we take this in real time. At one time, they were going to charge him with second degree murder.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I bet you that some way they'll bump it up to first degree. And they did.
They did.
They did that by tying it to terrorism. And that he brought terror to the community. It was a political type thing, this sort of thing that he was trying to use his cause to put fear in people's life to get attention to a cause. Well, guess what happens? When that happens, there's a good possibility now that in the trial, because they put terrorism on that could open it up for the defense to be able to come in and talk about that cause again, to talk about that political view that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of it being a trial about evidence, instead of it being a trial about a clear murder, it could turn into a political trial where the insurance companies actually get put on trial by them saying that this is why he did what he did. Otherwise, I mean, if they hadn't done the terrorism, there's probably no way that could have been put on it. So if you're the DA and you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, do I want this trial to turn into a political type thing where everybody's talking about the insurance company? If I don't want that to happen, then the best thing for me to do is maybe to do a deal and to agree to a deal to
Mm-hmm.
keep this from becoming a political trial rather than a criminal trial,
What
which it
kind of
would
a what
be.
kind of a deal you think you might cut?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think number one, I think he could say, okay, he'll plead guilty, but right now in the state charges, you're shooting for life without parole.
Hmm.
So he'll plead guilty, but take the without parole off. And after
Hmm.
25, 30 years, whatever it is, then at least he would be eligible for parole.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's not a far fetch because right now, we're still waiting on what's going to happen with the Menendez brothers
Right.
because they were actually put in prison for without parole, and now looks like the other district attorney was trying to get that parole taken off of it.
Hmm.
So maybe that's the deal they would go. Now, when it comes to the federal charges, it's very easy what you want to do, and that happens a lot of times with these charges. He will plead guilty if you'll take death off the table, in other words
Gotcha.
and then
Hmm.
also try to push at the same time for maybe that he also have an opportunity for parole. But if not that, at least get death off off the table, so he doesn't say that I'm going to end up dying, with the death penalty. So those are some of the deals that could be worked out. Now, I'm not saying they will be worked out, but that is one thing that could happen.
Okay. Well, you mentioned there's several ways. And we've talked about a deal and then also jury nullification. Can you kind of expand on jury nullification for our listeners?
Sure. Well, jury nullification, it actually occurs when the jury reaches a verdict of not guilty despite believing that the defendant is guilty.
Hmm.
And that usually happens sometimes when maybe they think it's unjust to charge the person, or they may think that the application is unfair, or maybe they say that the punishment is disproportionate to what they should have.
Hmm.
So instead of coming up with a total guilty, they may come back and say, okay, we're going to say not guilty because he believed in a cause. And this has happened time and time again in this country. I think a great example of it is O.J. Simpson.
Right.
Because even right now, some of the jurors that were in that jury are saying, well, we thought he did it, but we thought the police were so corrupt in what they did,
Yep.
that it
Yep.
was time to send a message to the police. And you can't continue to abuse people like this.
Hmm.
And that at that time they were thinking, well, white people, they get charged with crimes and they get off because they have a big attorney. So it's time for us to stick it to the man. So I think that was an example of jury nullification. I don't know that I've ever seen a case as strong as the O.J. Simpson case was to put him guilty.
Hmm.
But yet the jury, they actually answered something else. And you know what else in this country? Jurors cannot be punished for passing an incorrect verdict. So, I mean, they can do that. They can say, hey, not guilty, even though they think he's guilty. There's not going to be any consequences of the juror doing that.
Right.
So that's what jury nullification is. And pardon me, there are a lot of people that are saying that they think that this might be something that she goes at because think about this. This guy, to say that people would not side with him, that's incorrect. In this crazy world we're living in, there are people that think he's a hero right now.
Right.
They
Yeah.
they've raised over $100,000 in his legal defense fund.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they're actually merchandise now. The sweater he wore is going off the shelf like mad because people want to look like him. They want to act like him. I mean, there's even a committee that are part of his fund and raise some money for him. I mean, and when he went to trial in Manhattan when he first came for the arraignment. His Nobody from his family was there, but guess what? There were 24 women there that were swooning over him.
Oh
All
my goodness.
wearing masks. So there is a groundswell. There are people in this country. If you got those kind of people on that jury, what do you think they would say?
Not guilty.
Of course they would. They would say not guilty. So there is a possibility that there could be jury nullification done in this case because of all this support, this overwhelming support, not overwhelming support, but a lot of support that he has out there for that, which I think is totally ridiculous. I don't understand it. Why? I do know that a lot of people are really put out by the fact that they're paying a lot of money for health insurance,
Hmm.
and there's some things that the company isn't covering, and this sort of thing. I understand that. I still don't think that that's any reason to go out and shoot somebody and shoot them behind the back and then run off, you know.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
you know, I think that jury nullification is in there. The thing that the prosecution has to be really careful about if this trial goes to jury, if it goes to a jury, if there's a jury in this trial, they're going to have to be real careful about who is put on that jury
Hmm.
because if you get the wrong people in there, one or two things are going to happen. When I say the wrong people, if you got people who've already made up their mind before they get there and they already think that he shouldn't be punished for what he did, then you're either going to have a hung jury that will not come to a conclusion, or number two, you'll have a jury that'll run away with it and it'll be jury nullification.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that may be one thing that she works for, you know. If nothing else, work to try to get people on that jury that are sympathetic to his cause. Not maybe sympathetic to what he did, but sympathetic to his cause.
Right.
And that
Right.
might push them over to a jury nullification, you know.
Well, speaking of the insurance company, let's not forget the victim in this crime. What can you remind us about him?
Well, I appreciate what you said at the very beginning. You know, we've always tried at Charlie Crime Buster to not forget the victims.
Right.
And it's so easy in all of the hype about a crime, all the hype about these things. It's so easy to let the victim kind of get pushed to the side and forget about the victim.
Hmm.
And we don't want that to happen. But
No.
here's the thing that's so ironic about it. There's a couple things that I've learned about Brian Thompson that I think people should know. Number one, even though he was successful and he made tons of money, he worked for it. It wasn't handed to him. You
Right.
know, he
Right.
started from the bottom like anybody else.
Worked
You
his
know,
way up.
yeah, he worked his way up. Not like this kid Luigi, who had it handed to him because his parents were extremely wealthy,
Hmm.
put millions of dollars in his checking account, allowed him to travel all over the world, and gave him anything he could possibly want. Put him into a school for $40,000 a year for him to go to that school.
Yep.
Unlike that, Brian Thompson worked his way up. So what he had, what he was receiving, he earned it the old fashioned way
Right.
by good hard work. The second thing I would say about him that a lot of people may not understand, and maybe even Luigi should have done his homework, this was actually one of the good guys. He was actually working to reform the insurance industry.
Hmm.
He was working so that there could be more value to the consumer, more value to the customer. This was something that he was working with his team on trying to show more value to the consumer. So, you know, he was the wrong guy, in my opinion, to even go after in this situation. But beyond that, he was a father to two children,
Hmm.
a loving husband, and by all means, from what everybody is saying, a very good man and a guy who will be missed by many people.
Oh, absolutely.
So this is the kind of person that he killed, and I just don't think there's any justification for it at all.
I agree with you there. But is there any other way Luigi can get off, you think?
Well, in the podcast, we actually took some time to talk about Brian Thompson, just like
Mm.
we did tonight.
Right.
And at the close of that, I said, what kind of a person would ever kill somebody like that? And so the answer is a crazy one.
Yeah.
So then we come about to that third one, you know, that she might go for a plea of guilty, of not guilty by insanity, you know,
Right.
to go
Right.
after the insanity area. Now, remember, you know, as we talked about earlier, she's had experience in this. She actually set up the mental court for the state of New York,
That's
you
right.
know,
That's
she
right.
actually set up that court. You know, she knows what it takes for the court to notice those issues. She calls them underlying mental issues. So if she goes that route, then, you know, that she certainly has the experience to go that route. The second thing I would say is that before she took this case and talking somewhere, I had read that she already said, you know, that maybe the way that this thing would have to be plead for him to have any chance at all is for it to be an insanity plea. And
Mm.
she said that is not off the table in this case. So there are some people that believe that they don't believe that she'll go for jury nullification. There are some folks say that the better route would be to go for an insanity plea. Now, I could see, her argument, what she's probably saying.
Hmm.
Here is a guy who has everything going for him. He was a valedictorian of his class.
Hmm.
He had a good job. He had a good future. He had everything in the world going for him. And then suddenly he begins to isolate himself, because we do
Hmm.
know that there was a
Yep.
time when he isolated himself from his family. He isolated himself from his friends. They couldn't hear from him. He was traveling all over the world. Then suddenly he went down this rabbit hole. He began to study things about the Unabomber, this sort of thing. So I can see her saying, what kind of person would do that? I mean, why would a guy who has everything going for him do something like that? And then you come back and say, well, obviously something had to snap.
Right.
Something had to snap in his mind. He had to have some kind of mental problem to bring him to that place.
Right.
Now, I will say that anything that I've read about trying to get an insanity plea, not guilty by insanity, that's an extremely hard case to prove. And you think about this, he certainly had his beings about him. He planned this thing out, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
He came, he was lying in wait for him. It was premeditated. He had already written his manifesto. He planned his getaway.
Hmm.
He did all of that. He even, instead of going out by a bus like he came in, he probably went out by a train. So
Right.
he threw off the officials. So there's so many things that a sensible person would do. To me, in my mind, it would be hard for me to believe that he was insane.
Hmm.
I would, go, so it's a hard thing, but nonetheless, that is a way to go. And remember, she just has to really prove that to a few people in that jury,
Hmm.
because if she gets two or three people going that way, the very least she has a hung jury.
Right. Right.
And if she can bring everybody that way, she could bring them all around. And then, of course, remember too, now they have the big bucks, right?
Yep.
So you not think that they can find some psychiatrist, some psychologist somewhere that might come and testify to this if the
Hmm.
bucks are right?
Yep.
So
For the right price.
if she goes this way, I'll guarantee you there will be somebody there who
Hmm.
has some sort of a background, as a psychiatrist, psychologist in the mental health field, who would come to their side and actually testify for them.
Well, which one of the three do you think that we will see in court?
Well, like I said, having said all that, I think it'd be hard for them to prove insanity. Uh, I really can't say which one for sure. But I do know this, that I would think that her best deal, but her client may not let her. I think she would be best to go for a deal.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the best way. But I don't know. Hey, I'd like to hear from our listeners. What do you have if you took one of the three, which would you take, James?
I I would like to hear from our listeners as well.
We're going to punt that ball, aren't we? We're going to punt
That's
that
right.
ball. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
it's a safer approach.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but I can see where either one of those three could be a path for her to take.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I
You
mean,
know,
for him to take a deal would be a taxpayer's savings.
yeah.
It would save taxpayers a lot of money. If he chooses not to take the deal, then a plea of insanity is kind of hard to prove because there's obviously premeditation because he created a 3D gun. So you
Yeah.
obviously,
Oh, there
3D
you go.
weapon.
Yeah.
He's
I,
obviously
I
premeditated this from the get-go.
I couldn't do that, and I think I'm pretty
No.
well. Well, my wife may not think I'm sane, but but I couldn't do that. So I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
there are certain, even if you look at the field, though, there are certain people sometimes can be brilliant and still have mental problems. I mean, look at some of the
Yeah.
idiosyncrasies of some of
Yeah.
these
That's true.
extremely intelligent people. So I mean, uh, but then again, I do believe this. I believe if it goes to trial, I believe on top of all of this, you will see them. She'll certainly attack the evidence. She'll
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
try to find something wrong with the evidence, this sort of thing. Maybe even go back to the very arrest and try to get stuff thrown out that they found.
Yep. Yep.
That type of
Illegal
thing. So
search. Illegal
yeah,
search.
she'll try all that. I don't think
Yep.
she'll be successful with it, but she'll certainly try it. But just again, remember, if anybody knows the New York system as far as an insanity plea, she certainly should know it since she's set up the mental health court.
Mm-hmm.
She
Yep.
would know what it would take to get some of that stuff brought in. So
What scares me about that though is that she knows the loophole.
yeah,
When you manufacture something like that, you give yourself an out in the event that you have to trial, have a case that you have to handle and be a part of. You would give yourself an out, especially
yeah,
if you're creating that program. You know.
yeah. I'll tell you one thing, James. This is not a case where the prosecution needs to think, hey, it's a slam dunk. We got this. Don't even worry about it. They're going to have to bring the top of their game
They are.
to face this attorney.
They are. It's going to be.
This attorney will be good. And another thing, he's not said a word.
Yeah.
He didn't cooperate. He did
Nope.
what any attorney would want him to do.
Yep.
So
Yep.
he didn't incriminate himself, except he certainly incriminated himself with that writing. That he left
He
behind.
did. Yep. He did.
But other than that, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And hey, folks, reach out with that shout out. Tell us, do you think it's going to be the attorney's going to go for a deal? Or is she going to go for jury nullification? Or is she going to go for the insanity plea?
We want to know.
Yeah,
And
we
what
would
I'll do
like to
is
know.
I'll place a poll on the on our YouTube channel so they can go there and look at the post and form their opinion there.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, we'll do that. Let's
All right,
set that up.
James. So hey, it's already come and gone, and we've got a new year ahead of us. So
That went
uh,
fast.
let's take time to tell everybody a happy new year, right?
Yes, Happy New Year and a very blessed New Year, and be thankful this year for what we will be facing
Yeah.
over the next several years. Coming up with a new administration, a new Congress, and prayerfully everything will go well.
Yep. And by the way, keep in mind, while there have been some people in support of him, the president-elect has already come out and said that when he is brought into office, he's going to push the death penalty. So
Yep,
that's something that's going to be added to the mix as well. So
and that will
be
certainly reduce
interesting to see.
crime.
Yep. Now I'm not sure when this will drop, but if you do happen to hear this on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, whatever you do when you go out and party, please do not drink and drive,
Be safe.
and do not drive high.
Hmm.
But
Have a designated driver.
yeah, be smart about that.
Yep.
All right, folks, thank you for joining us. Till this time next time, we're going to tell everybody, James, to be
Be
safe, be
safe.
alert. We'll see them next year.
That's right.
So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, stay safe, stay alert. Yep, for the life you save, it could be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. You can find additional podcasts at charliecrimebuster.com. You can also support our first responders, military, and law enforcement communities at peacemakernetwork.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel using tag @CharlieCrimebuster. Even visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/CharlieCrimebuster. Or if you would like to make suggestions for future podcasts, please send your ideas to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that you will join us next week for another exciting crime story with Charlie Crimebuster.